Judge, currently in the status quo, major media awards like the Oscars separate categories by genders, such as having a Best Actor award versus a Best Actress award. This means that men and women compete in different categories even though they are performing the same skill, acting. This system was originally created to ensure women had representation in an industry that historically favored men. However, society and media landscapes have changed significantly since then, and today we have many awards that already have gender neutrality, like having a best album award or like best movie award that are already gender neutral. However, the major awards like Oscars still have many awards yet to be gender neutral. And with a society being more gender diverse, having a greater awareness of discrimination and a push towards equality, the question in this debate is whether gender separation is still the best way to recognize talent in the society currently. So there's two problems in the status quo. Firstly, it reinforces the idea that talent is gendered. By separating the awards into Best Actor versus Best Actress, we are sending the message that men and women should be judged separately, as if their performances are fundamentally different. But acting fundamentally is about emotional expression, skill, creativity, range, and none of these are dependent on gender. This creates like the issue where that suggests that men and women cannot be compared fairly, which is a very subtle but very powerful form of discrimination. Secondly, as the society evolves, nowadays the gender separate awards exclude non-binary and gender diverse individuals. The current system forces people into two rigid categories, male and female. This is harmful because it doesn't really reflect reality. Many people today identify as non-binary, gender fluid, or queer. These individuals are forced either to compete in a category that does not reflect their identity, or just be excluded and not have the power to sign up for these and compete for these awards. The key stakeholders in this debate are the actors and performers whose talent and identity are directly affected, the non-binary and queer individuals, the award institutions that give out the awards like Oscars, and ultimately the audience and society, because they need to approve of this way and they need to absorb the values and messages that these awards are promoting now. On proposition, we propose to abolish gendered award categories and replace them with gender neutral categories. For example, instead of a Best Actor versus Best Actress award, we'll just have an overall Best Performance in a movie or a leading role. Instead of separating it into gender categories, it'll just become one combined category. To maintain fairness and make sure that this is enforced, there's, there's going to increase a number. We're going to increase the number of nominees, so it'll maintain fair, and most likely there's still going to be both genders included in the gender awards, and to ensure that diverse representations will be through inclusive nomination processes. The model would be implemented by major awarding bodies such as the Oscars, the Golden Globes, and others. These institutions already have full control over the categories, the nomination process, and the voting process. So the enforcement will be more straightforward as long as they agree. Additionally, the public pressure, industry advocacy, and representation standards and gender diversity would ensure compliance among these uh, institutions, so they adopt this globally. Now, moving on to my arguments. My first argument is that gendered categories are outdated and they exclude non-binary individuals. Society now recognizes that gender is not binary. Many individuals identify themselves outside of male or female, and their identity are valid and increasingly visible. Gendered award categories forces individuals into categories that may not reflect who they actually are, creating exclusion and discomfort. Here's the mechanism. When a non-binary or queer actor is nominated, they must either choose a category that misrepresents their identity or risk not being
Sure.
recognized at all. No, this creates a system where recognition comes to at a cost of identity, and it is like forcing someone to pick the wrong box just to participate. Over time, this discourages participation and signals to the industry that it does not fully accept and understand the topic of gender diversity. A non-binary actor who gives an outstanding performance may feel uncomfortable being labeled as best actor or best actress, or or they'll just take away their award and not be able to compete in this area. This matters because awards are not just about winning, they're about the recognition and belonging for the entire society. Excluding people based on outdated gender categories makes the industry feel less fair and less inclusive. My second argument is that talent should be recognized without gender, and separating it is a very discriminatory act. Acting and artistic skills are not determined by gender, but ability to perform well depends on skill, effort, and creativity, not whether someone is male or female. When awards are separated, it creates the perception that men and women exist in different standards of excellence. Separating awards by gender implies that men and women must be judged differently, which enforces the idea that they're unequal. This is like having separate competitions for the same subject in school based on gender. It suggests that one group cannot fairly compete with the other. Over time, this normalizes the belief that gender affects capability even when it does not. If two actors deliver equally powerful performance but are placed in different categories simply because of
Go
gender,
on.
we are not truly comparing the best talent overall. We are artificially dividing it. Talent does not have a gender. So recognizing it through gender categories is a subtle form of discrimination. Judge, you should care about this because award shapes how society values excellence because so many audiences are watching who gets the award in the end. If we continue to separate talent by gender, we reinforce outdated and unequal standards. So, Judge, in my speech, I have framed the debate strongly proved our and proposed our proposition case and model. I also have provided two strong and unshakable arguments in support of a proposition, so therefore, so proud to propose. Thank you.
I think in generally, OG's case is just completely on minorities, where minority categories can be made and these minorities can still engage in open categories, making their arguments not unique and not impactful. Where OO comes in, and we tell you that we're going to run two arguments. One, on how companies have more incentive to hire more female actresses, providing more opportunities, no matter female actresses nor and female directors. Argument two, on how there's just going to be a less sexual harassment or prejudices in the current world. Now, a few pieces of framing before I go on. I think firstly is that a lot of movies that are made for getting that right now, a lot of movies are made for just getting into Oxfords. As a result, that a lot of female awards are just generally less competitive. That there's just less female directors because of the way that the industry is, because that this is the way that the industry is made. It's just easier for men to just crawl up and just to get awards, right? But we tell you that right now for females, it's just completely less competitive. That because that it's mainly dominated by male directors. As a result, that there's less female actresses, since male directors would still be more preferable to male actors, right? Thus, that on our side, we tell that they would hire more women actresses on our side. Opposition has to explain. I think opposition has to explain why the gender media awards would be so bad to win that they need to ban all of them. I think that this is government's burden that they have to explain while they never explain it to you. I think secondly, what does it look like in a harassment in industry? I think there's a current trend that the majority of males that they are winning actor awards, right? That the females are already getting sexual harassment just to crawl up the ladder and just to be better. That they're fighting for years to try hard, and they're trying so hard to just actually to call up and actually get some type of award. Thus, the society is very discriminatory. Men still gets the majority of power, and men still gets a lot of things that they want, right? I think there's this for two reasons. One is the phenomenon right now, right? The phenomenon right now is a third, then less than a third of the awards went to these females. It's because the majority is male actors, and the majority are male directors, right? This is why that the proportional for that this could bring to women is so small, right? Secondly, it's just historically men has just been seen superior than women, right? This has been this historical trend going on. I think the third piece of characterization is on how gender neutral awards still exist. For example, the best movie, right? For example, the best actor of the year, including all genders, right? I think that this which makes OG's case seem like very not unique. I think which leads to my first argument on how companies have more incentive to hire more female actresses. Reason number one is because companies want to win big awards. I think for A, just reputation. B, that they're profit driven and they want to make a lot of money. As a result, that companies that they have like the incentive to say that because that they want to win big awards, that they would want to hire like more female actresses, right? So when there's like more female actresses, then the more likelihood that they're gonna win the award since like female actresses, since like the female awards are like since like relatively less competitive. As a result, that because that they want to win the award, they're probably going to hire more female actresses. Reason number two, that they get praise from the feminist movement, right? The feminist movement, what do they want? They want more female power in the industry. They want more people to actually to want like more. They want just to broaden their they just want more people to know about it, right? They want more females to be the leaders, right? They want more females to have power. Thus, that when there is a female lead in the industry, when there's like a female lead, a female actor or female director, this means that they are probably interested to support. It's because this is going this aligns with the female feminist movement and aligns with what they want. Reason number three, which how the audience demands for like higher quality stories, right? That the companies would still want to gain a lot of views and still want to gain like really a high quality comments from the audience and want to gain like high recognition from the audience. As a result, that they have the incentive to just hire more female actresses since this could bring them like better reputation, and then they could just more possibility of them winning awards, but also like more better like or better recognition from the audience. I think the impact here is threefold. One, to female actresses, I think this not only gives them more opportunities to get the award, but also they get more opportunities to speak out the inequality. When they get Oscars award, when they go on the stage, it's more likely for them to tell other people how they feel and their experience about it. Why is it likely? They're probably going to say about their sexual harassment or what they have like encountered, right? Because they want other females to know and they want to advocate for change. Secondly, to female directors, it's because that they want to be more towards women, and it's more likely for them to hire female actresses. Thus, it's also there's going to be a higher opportunity for them to actually showcase the work. Thirdly, to females in general, right? Their voices are going to be heard, right? They're probably going to know that, oh, someone's speaking out for them, that they are actually get sexual harassment from the workplace too. They feel like the sympathy, but also they feel like their voices are being heard. As a result, there's just generally more opportunities for females. Now, onto my second argument on how there's just going to be less sexual harassment and prejudices on our side. Why is it likely to happen? Why sexual harassment is just generally more likely to happen on their side? One, it's because just historically, as I have already explained, that there's just this historical trend. But secondly, it's because that when you're small and you're a minor, people can do anything what you want, right? Anything that they want. People because see you as so vulnerable and so small, and since you desperately need this like actress position. As a result, they need that because they know that because you desperately need money and you desperately need this position, they would want you to do whatever that they want because they know that you're out of necessity and not out of wants. Reason number one, we tell the film industry has a lot of sexual harassment already, that the directors harass women and threaten them, right, to have sexual relations with them, right, after they respect and telling them to respect men and do everything for men. It's because women are willing to do this for men. Why? It's because that women know the consequences and having the fear of these directors. It's because these directors are like, and these popular actors are billionaires, that they're so rich and they have so much power, and thus that when they say something, they could just determine like this woman's whole career, right? Thus it could actually be harmful for the future, and for the future, it would just be even worse for the future, and they would just have nothing for the future. As a result, they're willing to do something that they don't even want to do because out of necessity. However, why would this be changed on our side of the house? We tell that actresses would have more opportunity to speak out, that they would gain public attention, but additionally, women gain more power and leverage on our side of the house. I think reason number two is just generally how these women are precious, how companies value them more, that because of the more fame that they get, that the more careful companies will actually treat them. It's because now that they have like millions of followers supporting them and everyone watching them, seeing what they're going through when they are actually famous. As a result, when they get sexual harassed, then probably like their fans would be really mad and then would actually protest for it, and they get justice back. As a result, it's generally better for females on our side of house. Proud to be on opposition.
So as the second speaker of the opening government, I will be doing a few things. First, I will be reframing. Then I'll give some rebuttals on the opposite side. Then I will give an argument supporting the proposition. Lastly, I will conclude what we have to contribute for this speech. Debate. So I will start with reframing. So in the status quo, major awards like the Oscars still separate categories by gender, best actor and best actress. While we already have gender-neutral awards such as Best Album of the Year or Best Picture, where men and women compete together. So the question is simple: why are we still separating acting awards by gender? We propose to abolish gender categories and replace them with combined gender-neutral ones, like Best Performance in a Leading Role. This is not radical. It's the logical next step towards equality. Now I will move on to the rebutting the previous speaker. So firstly, the previous speaker said that gendered award incentivize hiring more female actresses because companies want to win less competitive categories. This argument is very, very patronizing. It assumes that female actors cannot compete on equal footing with men, so they need a separate, easier category to get hired. That is not equality, that is a handicap. The implication is that women only get roles because studios want to win a less competitive trophy, not because of their talent. Under our model, female actresses will compete directly against men. If they are truly talented, and we believe they are, they will win on merit, not because the category is artificially restricted. The opposition's model keep women in a separate, easier league. Ours says that compete equally, win fairly, and be recognized as the best. So, the opposition also said how gendered awards reduce sexual harassment and prejudice in the industry. This is not true. How does separating award categories prevent harassment? Harassment is about power and culture, not about whether the Oscars have one trophy or two. In fact, separate categories reinforce the idea that men and women are fundamentally different and women need protection, a paternalistic attitude that fuels, not fights, discrimination. The real solution to harassment is a stronger reporting system, better workplace protection, and cultural change. Keeping gendered awards does nothing to stop a producer from exploiting and inspiring extras. The opposition is confusing correlation with causation, and their argument collapses under the slightest scrutiny. So now, I will be moving on to my argument. My argument is that abolishing gendered awards will change the entire industry for the better, because awards shape what kind of stories get told. What I mean by this is that awards are not just shiny trophies. They send signals to studios, writers, and producers about what kind of performance and stories are valued. When you separate Best Actor and Best Actress, you are reinforcing a binary male-female way of looking at the world. That means stories about people at the intersection, like non-binary characters, queer love, or complex gender journeys, are less likely to be platformed because the award system doesn't easily recognize them. When you remove gendered categories, you give new options. Non-binary performers in a groundbreaking role is now competing on equal terms with the others, with male and female. Studios will be more willing to fund stories that reflect real diversity, not just a boy falling in love with a girl. They will invest in scripts and delve into identity marginalized communities and perspectives that have historically faced exclusion. For example, imagine a film about a gender-fluid teenager navigating family and school. Under this current system, the lead actor has no clear category. Are they best actor or best actress? Many award bodies simply will not know what to do. Under our model, they would compete in the best performance section, and their work will be judged on merit, not on which box they tick. This model encourages the production of more films like that. Why should you care about this outcome? Because representation matters. Awards are how the industry decide what excellence looks like. If we only keep a system that recognizes males and females, we are telling the next generation of filmmakers that stories outside of the binary are less important. That is not just unfair, it is also a creative loss for all of us. So let me summarize what OG has to offer today. First, we reframed the debate around whether talent has a gender, and we proved it does not. Second, we provided strong rebuttals to the opposition's likely concerns about representation and opportunity. And finally, we argued that abolishing gendered categories will change the industry for the better, platforming diverse stories that would otherwise be ignored. That is why OG should win. Proud to propose.
OG is inherently correct. They're right. Talent doesn't have gender. This is exactly the reasoning behind why gender-neutral categories exist. However, they fail to fulfill their unique burden of proving why the gender category is so bad that there needs to be an abolishment immediately. Female talent and quote-unquote equality can already be fulfilled in the status quo where gender-neutral categories already exist, e.g. the best actor, e.g. the best movie or the best album of the year, and etc. Judge. So moving on, talking about what OG contributes in this debate, my partner Elisa, the Prime Minister, gives you two arguments. First of all, about there's going to be an increase of female participants in the entertainment industry as a whole. How do we achieve this? Two things. First of all, recognize that companies and movies are literally made specifically to win awards. When the female category is always just a smaller pool, as only 32% of major film studios in 2024, I believe, have movies with female leads, meaning that that means that female category is significantly an easier pool or a smaller pool to win from. This means that studios will want to feature more female actors and more female directors to win these awards. Second of all, recognize that many female roles means that the feminist movement will praise and tweet or try to gain attention for the movie or urging or asking for support and votes because your movie talks about the feminist movement, because your movie has female actors and etc. and female directors. Second of all, Elisa also tells you the second thing about there's going to be a decrease of sexism and prejudice in the industry. We achieve this from two folds actually. First of all, the entertainment industry has always had extreme sexual harassments that is extremely prominent in the industry. Think billionaires, famous directors or actors harass or take advantage of small female actors who just simply have no platform to speak out against. Then having a female award where a woman was 100% likely to win, this means that every single award that a female wins in the female category means that there's going to be a more voice to speak out against this inherent sexism, inherent prejudice, and misogyny inside the industry currently. Second of all, recognize that the feminist movement will likely engage more when A, there's going to be more women speaking out in the platform and urging the feminist movement to do something, and second, and B, when women show a trend of winning, the feminist movement will start to rise because the feminist movement will see this as a valuable opportunity for women to win, which is what the feminist movement wants. They want the women's societies to win and have a voice. So what are the impacts Elisa tells you? Elisa tells you four things. First of all, there's going to be an increase of female involvement, actresses, directors, and etc. Second of all, recognize that when there's an increase of female directors and actors, this means that they are likely to talk about to openly talk about their harassments, their horrible experiences, and urge the movement to do something about it. Thirdly, recognize that there's going to be an involvement of feminist movement helping and fixing the prejudices, misogyny inside the industry. And fourthly, recognize that OG uniquely solves these horrible things that happen within industry, giving equality to not only the female actors but also little kids who are potentially watching the movie because they see that there's a female actor. They're thinking that, oh wait, I can also be a main character in my life, or I can also aspire to be a female actor because we finally have a platform after 5 decades at the minimum. And so, Judge, to weigh over OO, or just the rest of the bench to be general, but the main question here is, does OO actually justify the ban? We first look at what the OO says. OO says two things in this debate. First of all, they tell you that LGBT actors and directors need a category and a platform. Second of all, they say that having a separate category implies that women are inherently worse and less talented. Why do we think this is untrue? Four main reasons. First of all, recognize the issue of LGBTQ can be easily solved without an abolishment. For example, they can open up a queer category, or they can these directors or actors can simply compete in the gender-neutral category. Second of all, recognize that OO doesn't actually prove how an abolishment of the gender category actually how the abolishment of the gender category actually solves the issue of LGBTQ. They simply state, here's an issue, and they do not give a solution that ties back to the motion or to what their side is arguing. Thirdly, recognize that there are gender-neutral categories where women can show talent currently. A woman director can still compete in the best movie award of 2025 or 2026 or whatever. But it is the reason why we need a feminist a female category is because it is factual that in these neutral awards, men still have show a trend of winning more over men. For example, in 2000s to 2022, in the span of 20 years,
why?
there are 3 times the male nominees than female nominees. There's still an inherent injustice, and because of that injustice, there not only needs to be a gender neutral category where they can show talent as OO wants, but there also needs to be a female category where women have an opportunity to win. Fourthly, recognize that equality is an equality in opportunity, not false equality hidden behind the lies of prejudices. Yes, I'll take that POI.
Are you basically admitting to the fact that male actors might be better than female actors? While this is not true, please
No,
firstly
please. This is my time. I think that is that CEO? I think they basically ignored the entirety of what I said. I said that I didn't say that females are worse than men. I said that the female pool, because of inherently how prejudiced and how little the amount of actors and directors there are in the entertainment industry, it is inherently an easier pool. Think, in 2024, there are only 32% of actors of major film studios that featured female leads. This is just inherently true. It's factual. I don't get what CO is trying to say here. But lastly, to talk about my speech, I took the impact of OO and OG in this debate. First of all, talking about equality, they say that the category is inherently misogynist, and thus to bring equality to the industry or just overall society, you need to abolish this. We say that a category is a reflection of the industry. The entertainment industry is extremely internally misogynistic, and the only way to actually solve this equality is if women step up and talk and speak against this internal misogyny, and this only happens through OG's arguments. We achieve equality in the future, in the present, and also fix the mistakes of past that have caused extreme amounts of misogyny, Judge. OG uniquely solves these inherent issues that are horrible and cause torments to our female actors and our female powerists in our society, but OG also inspires the younger generation and bring forth new opportunities for the future as well. Please vote OG.
Our society is always pushing for more gender equality, less sexism, while we still genderize media. 2 points of the speech. Firstly, on how we have a better, fairer playing field where genders are more equal, there's more competition. And secondly, what the whole purpose of media and art is in general. Firstly, a bit on rebuttal against CO. I think CO firstly makes this huge assumption that directors care more about people and casting for people that might win awards than casting for the right actor or an actor that might play this specific character the best. We also see that firstly, I believe Tado responded to this, is that in many other fields, such as literature or music, where they don't have genderized awards, companies still look for many female singers. They still look for many female writers, and they still cast for these people because females are still able to dominate in this field. Such as in singing, female singers are still able to dominate. Taylor Swift is still able to dominate this field. Female singers are still able to dominate. And secondly, we just believe that when you're able to cast someone for acting or any other type of media, you probably don't look for the potential of them to win an award. Yes, this might be small, but I feel the main thing or main target when you look for a targeted actor is what each actor might play this character the best. And sometimes female actors have this ability to do this the best. Female actors are able to, perhaps this female actor has the ability to cast their emotions or cast the exact type of personality that this character has in the book or film, perhaps. And I believe that even if we take CO by the best case scenario, that directors do cast less females in the status quo, I believe that this firstly gives us more attention and gives media attention to the fact that these directors are casting out females. I believe that the fans, the media, they will see this discrimination in the status quo, and this will mean that we'll take action against it. It'll probably mean that we're going to reinforce more laws. We're probably going to see more of the public speaking out against this. And this will mean that we just get more media attention for helping the females in this film. Now on to my point on how on our side we just get a fair better playing field. I believe that if we cast these actors together, we just get a much larger playing field. It means like more competition. It means more people that you're able to compete against. And I believe it just makes it much more harder to win an award. And if it makes it much harder to win an award, what you see, the impact of this is that the quality of these acting goes up. You get much more respect when you get this award. And because it's such a generalized award, it's just like the top tier award, like isn't any award better than this? Basically, when you win this award, it's like the best thing in the world. More people are like going to work harder for this award because it's seen as something so great. Why is this? It's because right now when women win awards, some people might just see this and recognize them as, oh, you might be the best woman actor, but they don't personally believe they could beat another male actor. And because a woman in themselves has no way to like prove this, when we when we stop these genderalization, we're able to prove that they are the top of their playing field. They are able to beat men, women, and as a girl, we are able to show that we are able to beat them sometimes. And it means just that we get like more recognition for women actors. We get more recognition in general, and we also believe that it impacts. The other impact is that we're able to like silence other sexist people who call themselves out and tell them that like men dominate their field, and the only reason why this woman won this award is because they only were competing against women. Okay, now I'm going to go into my second point on how like a core principle of like media and like art, for example, is like for the acting is for like the expressionism of it as a whole. It's not for like, the gender you are, and whatever gender you are does not cause any impact on the way you act. I'll take a POI.
Stop living in your utopia. People wouldn't suddenly stop discriminating. Wouldn't people not work harder? It's more likely for them to not work harder. It's because it's unlikely for them to win anyways.
I don't get what you're trying to put out here. I'm saying that if they were put in a whole playing field, you're just going to work harder because you see that you can compete against much more people. You can compete against people of opposite genders. You can prove the other gender wrong. You can prove sexist comments wrong. You have this drive to be the best in your field. So we get better competition. We get better actors on our side. Okay, now on to my second point on how like art is like, or like media in general is like focused on the acting side of it. It's focused on how we are able to like focus on like that part where people are just like acting instead of looking at the gender or comparing between like different specific gendered actors or actresses. You're able just to compare them as a whole. You don't have to no longer focus on like the specific gender. You don't have to no longer focus on like small things. You can just focus on the gender as a whole. I also believe this means that in like all of these like big awards or these like performance categories where like women have been winning top prizes repeatedly, we see that like we see more women stepping up. We see like more women trying to do better, and we see more recognition for this from the public. We see more recognition from this from the fan, and we also see that we have like a larger hiring incentive for like directors because we see that these directors see that like women also have the potential to show like this media wrong. When we like live in a world where many people think that women can't like win this award, I feel like directors know and see potential in women winning this award. They would like try their best to do this. Women would like try their best to do what they can to win this award. And I see that directors might see this. They will also believe that if this woman has the potential to win this award, they would also cast them as well. So what should you believe at the end of this debate? I believe that you should firstly believe that we just believe that you get a much larger playing field with much more competition on our side, where the quality of acting goes up. You have more respect for all these actors, and the impact of this is that you just get better actors, better like media in general. And secondly, the core principle of art in general is to look at the expressionism or look at how good they are at acting. It isn't looking at that like gender, because gender doesn't change how someone acts. It's the person or like the abilities overall, and that is why I'm proud to confirm. That's why I'm proud to, yeah.
One. Panel, it is very unfortunate that as we progress into this debate, both OG and CG just cannot grasp the fact that mixing gender categories into one does not equal gender equality. They misunderstand the whole concept and fails to understand that gendered categories give artists opportunities, especially the female artists, to compete in fairness instead of one gender being crushed by the other gender. So proud to oppose. Now, a strategic mistake they made before I move on to my rebuttal set. So first, OG kept telling you that they would abolish gendered categories so they can ensure fairness when categories are mixed into one. But panel, they never explained to us as to how exactly fairness would be ensured, which makes their point vague. And a piece of framing, because this has never been mentioned before, we would like to say that men and women are treated differently in the industry and their experiences are different, right? Women significantly suffers more challenges in the industry, and what we mean by this is because like women and men have different roles and set of expectations. We're not necessarily saying that women suffer solely on challenges such as sexism, because male artists could also suffer from those types of problems. Now, moving on to my rebuttal set. First, side proposition said that gendered categories suggest discrimination against the two genders and tells us that both genders are unequal and one gender isn't as good as the other. And panel, this gets the cause wrong because like separate categories recognize men's built-in advantages like more roles, bigger budgets, and careers lasting into old age, letting women compete on equal footing with peers who face the same roadblocks, just as boxing uses weight classes to avoid big guys crushing smaller ones every time. They honor talent fairly across both. Without them, raw numbers let men sweep unified pools, erasing women's hard-fought spotlights, right? Side proposition turns helpful equity fixes into made-up quote-unquote bias while pretending the field plays even. And second clash on when side proposition told us that there are now individuals who do not fit in both gender categories, for example, queer and non-binary, and that gender categories are outdated. And panel, we would like to say that yes, we acknowledge that, and what we want to do is introduce a whole new category, especially for these individuals, instead of disregarding them as a whole, because then that would just be unfair, right? Now, moving on to the third clash then. So they also said that a lot of directors and companies still search for female artists, and they still dominate, for example, Taylor Swift. But panel, note that stars like Taylor Swift are rare breakthroughs that highlight the rule, not erase it. Most women still battle typecasting inside roles, early age cutoffs, and fewer chances overall that men simply don't face. When studios chasing them only after public pushes rather than handing equal shots from the start. Now, before I move on to my two arguments, are there any POIs? 3, 2, 1. Assuming that there are none, let me move on. Let me move forward then. So first, so moving on to my argument about the path of female and male artists are, as well as the expectations set for them, are different. So some context then, men and women are actors face distinct career paths in film and TV due to long-standing industry biases, right? Men offer secure director and producer roles about 85 to 90% of cases, gain larger budgets, and enjoy roles into old age. Women encounter typecasting, lower pay about 25 to 30% less, and fewer opportunities after the age of 40. Abolishing gender awards ignores these differences and places women at a disadvantage in a combined category. Now, moving on to my first layer of analysis, then on different career paths and barriers. Men benefit from longer careers and diverse roles such as action films and mentorship parts in later years, averaging 50% more credits overall. Women typically receive romantic or supporting roles early on, with opportunities declining after age 35. Expectations also differ. Men receive praise for range across genres, while women face judgment based on appearance alongside performance. And gendered awards ensure women gain visibility despite these constraints. Now, moving on to my second layer, then on gender differences influencing distinct artistic styles. So panel, men and women often experience the world differently. That's no secret, right? And this shapes the kind of art they create, the emotions they highlight, and the roles they choose to play. Female artists may focus more on themes like care, vulnerability, or resistance to discrimination, like OO has said, while male artists may more often explore power, risk, or certain social expectations placed on men, right? And these are not strict rules, panel, but they do show that gender tends to influence tone, also tends to influence style and perspective in meaningful ways. But when we put all of these very different expressions into one single category, what we are saying is that we would be asking judges to directly compare works that may aim to do completely different things. And panel, it becomes like judging a quiet, intimate performance about motherhood directly against a loud and aggressive performance about war, right? We tell you that both can be excellent, but they succeed in very different ways. So separate gendered categories respect these broad differences by allowing each type of expression space to shine on its own terms. Now done with my argument. Now let me tell you what we did better than OO did. So first, opening opposition's whole case was centered around women, and they also went on to tell us how if we do not abolish gendered categories, then companies would be more driven to hire female actresses, and that the female actresses will gain support from feminists. Therefore, females will have more power and also more recognition, as well as more opportunities for awards and to speak up about inequality. They also talked about less sexual harassment and will happen due to not abolishing gender categories. And we do acknowledge that their arguments are indeed of importance and that we stand by their points. However, we would also like to note that sometimes their points are vague, and at the same time, we would appreciate it if they did include more substance. Now, moving on. Also note, panel, that OO hasn't actually touched on OG's point on non-binary or queer individuals at the start, which we say is a major point considering the situation of the status quo. But then, what they told us was that these individuals can compete in the gender-neutral categories. But panel, this is literally so diminishing towards these individuals, because how come individuals who identify as men or women get a separate category but they don't? It would be unjust, right? However, if we were to introduce a whole new category, that would solve the problem raised by OG as a whole, and that is what we've mentioned. And thirdly, both LO and DLO speech are repetitive, and again, while we do appreciate their points and amount of substance they brought up, both speakers repetitively talked about feminists, more women speaking up, and etc., which are more or less the same points over and over again. So now let's weigh this debate as a whole then. And why side opposition will win? Opposition wins because our arguments on different career paths and expectations proves gendered awards fix men's real edges in roles, budgets, and longevity, like fair sports handicaps, while crushing side propositions myths. And the thing is, panel, we've already proven to you why our points stand, and we've also crushed side proposition's whole case, and we've also told you that their cases are vague. And the thing is, they have never actually completely and properly elaborated on our case. Therefore, side opposition will win. For all those reasons, then you must vote for side opposition. Thank you.
The opposition is simply trying to solve this problem by putting more categories, which are simply too short term, not long term enough, and not looking at the whole range and scale of things. So in this debate, I have 2 points of clash. My first point of clash is whether or not this is actually better for the men's and women. So opening government says that talent isn't dependent on gender. However, they focus on the segment of this being for non-binary people who may not have a gender category that fits into them. And we agree for this. However, we want to focus on a different aspect of this. We want to focus on its effects on women and men and like genders as a whole, not just the non-binary people. And we think that's where like more impacts can come out, because that also impacts the art greater as a whole as well, not just focusing on non-binary people who also do have an impact though. So opening opposition also says that there'll be like less sexual harassment because of this. However, we think that sexual harassment isn't because of this. This is an unrelated side point, and we're not this is not what the debate is trying to like get at. This is not like the main point or the problem or the issue that we're trying to solve. They also said that there'll be less prejudice. However, we think that there'll be more prejudice. When you're separating someone based on male and female, when you're separating someone based on their gender, you're basically saying, oh, we don't think females can perform to the same capacity that males can. But when instead you're combining these categories, that basically means that you're giving them the opportunity, you're giving them that chance to show that they're like just as worthy as men, that they're able to do this, that they don't need to be grouped based on their genders. So opening oppositions says that as government, we fail to prove the unique burden. That's why everything's so bad that we actually need to change now. Yes.
So how can you actually ensure that there is no bias in a mixed category, because you have never touched on that? Please engage.
So there won't be bias in a mixed well, now basically what's happening is people are all given the equal opportunity in order to perform. They're able to like do the movies they want to do the scenes they want to do, and based on this, that's what they're getting judged on. They're getting judged on their ability. They're not getting separated into their genders, and like what they're getting judged on is their skill. It's not like it's not separated into their genders. We're not saying that like, oh, men and women are different and we need to separate them. So basically what happens is that like opening opposition says that like women are only in like 32% of films, and actors want to make more female movies because it means that there's a higher chance that these female movies will win awards. However, what are we going to say is that what happens when like it becomes popular and now 80% of movies feature females? Do you think they'll still want females then? We think that your impact is first of all very short term, and it doesn't like appreciate and like look at like the broad or how like this world actually works, which is a world where not everyone's doing something just to win awards. And they also said that they also said taking them at the best case, even if 32% means that like more people are making female movies, this basically means that what you're saying is that in your side of the world, what's happening is that these famous like these industries, these movies, they just want the popular actresses who already won awards, and these new and inexperienced actors won't even get any. But in reality, what it looks like is women are now being judged on their potential. So now they're chosen not just for fame, they're chosen because they're able to play this character well, they're chosen because they have the potential to do this. So how do we differ from opening government? Well, we're actually benefiting all genders and not just specifically the non-binary people who do have an impact, but we believe that by doing this, we're benefiting men and women, because instead of putting categories over categories, we're now treating everyone as a whole. We're treating them as it's being inclusive, and we're giving them the equal chance to play out and play out based on their skill and their different experiences and what they've been through and how they like to act. Because it's like the core issue is that we're not separating these people. We're not telling them, oh, this and this. We're giving them the opportunity to act and do whatever they want to do and thus be judged on that as a whole, not being separated by their genders. So my second point of clash is, how does this affect the institution or the society? So what they had to prove, first of all, they had to prove that it's better for the non-binary people, and it's better for the male and female, all of these relating to actors. And second of all, it's better for the people who are viewing, and it's better for the institutions. So now, how we differ from the opening government. So basically, we also benefit the art and media, because now we're placing these female and men actors in a bigger playing field. What that means is there's more competition for them, which means that they'll strive to have higher quality and like better performances, which is better for the art and the media, because that means that the performances, the movies, the outputs that they're getting are all going to be of higher quality. So what happens is that opening opposition says that, oh, won't these people just give up because now they have no chance to win an award? Well, first of all, they're completely ignoring what our reality is looking like, which is that not everyone does it for award. Okay, awards are sometimes just like a nice side benefit. They might do it because they love acting, because they have a passion in this. Otherwise, why did they start in the first place? Yes.
But sometimes awards may also mean that it leads to more opportunities for them, and even if they're nominated, like it leads to more opportunities for them. So please engage.
So we agree that I agree that basically awards means that more opportunities, but what like I'm talking about right now is that like not everyone does it simply for an award, and not every industry simply chooses it for award. And if they win this award, that's great, right? But even in the status quo, when we're having like female and male, people might think, oh, you're just the best female actor. Why can't we just get like a male actor to do this bit instead? Because we're separating them. However, if it's like an overall, if it's like really big, and if we have like male and female genders both included, that means that when you win the award, then it's not just like, oh, you're the best in your gender. It's like you're the best in this category that you've been chosen under. And now, the second point that I was going to touch on is that even these people who do want the awards, okay, even these people who do want to be nominated, they do want to get the benefits like you suggested. So what's happening is that now, like, you'll actually be working harder. You won't give up, like opening opposition has stated. So for example, just because you're being ranked against your grade, not your class, using this as an example for scale, it doesn't mean that you're going to give up, and instead means that you're going to work even harder. So closing says that people like Taylor Swift are just a rare breakthrough. However, having just a female award category won't fix anything. They won't fix anything. They won't give females more opportunities. It won't solve these problems that you're trying to say are undermining in the status quo. And also, they said that gender differences are basically gender differs because you show different emotions when you're a different gender. Well, everyone has a unique style. Everyone shows their emotions in a different way. Everyone wants to, like, some people might want to do that like gentle, like motherhood one, and some people might want to play like things like war. And we think this is not just about gender. This is about your style. This is about your own experiences. This is about like the person that you are at a core. And also, if you really want to say that, okay, there's subcategories for that too. Like, you don't need to do this just because of gender. And that's quite like stereotypical to just believe that like two genders are like, they typically believe in different things. So, well, also, opening opposition states that we should just open a queer category, but we don't think the solution is to put categories on top of categories on top of categories. This is still separating people. We want to integrate people. Everything that you're saying is so short term, but instead we should be focusing on the long term impacts by opening up the playing field to everyone and encouraging people to work harder. So because we're encouraging everyone to work harder in a playing field that's more wide, and where people are allowed to be like, where people aren't just defined based on their genders, we're integrating society. We're not just separating them, we're integrating them. We're giving them like more prestige. We're not defining them based on their genders, and this integration leads to long-term this integration leads to better long-term impact, which we think is the most important, which also affects a large amount of scale, and that's why you should put your vote towards government. Thank you.
Throughout this entire debate with 3 teams, no one except for my first speaker ever thought to bring up the true journey that each gender goes through. Even the closing government couldn't respond to her case. And that's where they make the fatal flaw. Because the biggest reason that media awards should be gendered is because simply men and women experience different things and act at different expectations in the industry itself. All of the arguments that came before us proved in the end to be flawed because no one ever brought this important aspect up, so proud to oppose. But first, on clarifications and strategic mistakes. Panel, they said that they want to benefit both men and women and all genders, but the thing is, when they told you that a mixed category would mean more competition and artists would try harder, but the thing they don't understand is that more competition means the most famous male and female artists are the ones being prioritized, and those who are already famous. Meanwhile, gendered categories give opportunities to more artists and those who may not be famous in the first place, and examples would be like Olivia Dean. What we're essentially giving you is we're giving you variety and we're giving you more options and more opportunities and more recognition to expand, right? But then let me move on to my actual rebuttals, right? Both of the OG and CG said that our system basically reinforces that acting is dependent on gender and cannot be judged fairly. They also said that it's an award for the same skill that is acting, and that we do not truly recognize the true talent overall. Note that that again, opening opposition did not respond to this, but we will. Note that it's not we think either men or women are incompetent to be judged against each other, or we think one gender is comparatively better. It's that the acting itself, as well as the expectations ever since the production date, was varied, and the path itself for both respective genders was different. Therefore, the award given to should be separated. What do I mean by this, right? Note that we are not being sexist, we are being realistic. It's not about the quality of the performance done, but instead of the type of performance being performed itself, because we tell you that ever since the very date of production, I'll take it later, of the movie or during the acting time, men and women go through different paths, and the different things are expected of them. Because note that art and therefore acting in itself is varied, that the expectation for each gender is different. It's not discrimination, but pure requirement and expectation for the type of acting to be done. Because note that different actors are expected for different genders. Those two genders act in a different type of acting itself. Studios would often expect different types of characters and different types of personality, acting, and essential needs for different genders. Like, for example, a man might need to be more tough, masculine, or fierce, and a woman would need to be essentially emotionally vulnerable. So then note that the importance for men to be separated from women is because they act and they do everything on extremely different layers. The path is extremely different. Also note that it's not just because of misogyny, while we do admit it plays quite a role, but also because of the biggest factors. There are the literal characters that are needed and the type of acting done for respective genders. It is because since the very start of the date of production, men were put against men for their role and women were put against women for the role of the character. Note that the paths each gender goes through is something especially important in this debate to ensure a fair playing field that all the three teams never even stop to consider. No, it's not entirely about misogyny. No, it's not about reinforcement of sexism. And no, it's not about trying to uplift a certain gender. It's about the fact that men and women, even since production, were held against different potential characters, different standards, different roles, therefore should have different awards for the different paths that they had to endure naturally. The awards, however, don't become for superiority, but recognition of the different paths that each gender and actor respectively had to go through. I'll take that POI.
Oh yeah, so don't you think that like everyone has a different sort of acting style based on like their experiences and stuff, and it just isn't just like dependent on what their gender is?
However, I think that's where this analysis is flawed, because men and women, the way they are pinpointed are actually very, very different. It's not just the acting type, it's also the way they present themselves and the way that the directors cherry pick them. It's not just a version of acting style, but the characters that they fill in, the different genders that they fill, and the different requirements that are needed for the genders, especially for the biases and the misogyny that is also still rooted in the industry. But then also moving on to the second clash and back to the rebuttals, right? The closing government said that people would work harder, that leads to better actors in a bigger playing field. However, we tell you that this argument is essentially flawed because they never even categorize how media awards are given. We tell you that awards are chosen and given based off of emotional impact or overall impact that was made, not off of hard work. CG assumes that hard work directly means results. We tell you this isn't true and they're being unrealistic because even with the current playing field, actors are already very passionate. They already work very hard and they already strive for the awards. We tell you a bigger playing field would just close up spots for recognition and prevent fair judging based on different experiences. But then I'll take that POI.
If gender neutral awards are so bad, then why is like everyone so supportive of gender neutral music awards or gender mutual literature awards?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
If gender neutral awards are so bad, then why is everyone so supportive of like gender neutral music and literature awards?
Gender neutral? Uh, I don't get what you're trying to say, so I will just be moving on to my rebuttals. But then moving on to the third clash. Opening opposition said that their side would hire more women and that harassment or sexual abuse is reduced under theirs because there's a trend that men are better than women. However, we would like to point out that sure, opening opposition has a point in misogyny, but this is where our cases severely start to differentiate because their case runs on the assumption that the acting industry is extremely sexist and they suppress women to an extreme point. But this is where we tell you they made a mistake and we would reframe that better because the movie and art industry is not that sexist to the point they exaggerate to. It's not the main point of the debate. They do not suppress women, and we tell you that badly, and we tell you that the industry is quite charitable because there's a need for both women and men actors for different characters. Therefore, a superiority in hiring isn't really that realistic. Their case couldn't even possibly run because of the actor requirement itself. We actually also proved to you that their argument doesn't entirely work because even if there's an opening for a new awards, it wouldn't make the movies change their entire characters. That would require a whole plot twist and a plot change. It's unrealistic for them to say that movies would just switch genders because the incentive wouldn't be enough. And instead, we tell you that we need to pivot our attention into how gender media awards stem from the very fact that men and women act on different roles from different expectations from the very start of the production, and they had to go down different paths. They had to go down different paths and different experiences because of the difference in gender. And for all of those reasons, I strongly oppose.